Hi everyone, and welcome to Hope from Home, the show where we bring you conversations of hope from our home to yours. Today, Mateo Chofi speaks with Carlos Garde of Rome Reports and gets an update from Madrid. Noel Okel learns about the significance of consecrating our country to Mary, and Deacon Pedro connects with a midwife in Austin, Texas, who tells us all about babies being born during this time. And of course, they'll all tell us where they're finding hope from our home to yours.
Carlos, thank you for joining us here at Hope from Home. First of all, I would like to ask you, how are you and how's the situation right now?
Well, I'm at home, as you can see, working since March 13, and because I'm in Madrid, because when the Spanish government decreed the state of alarm, I was at that time in Spain for working reasons, and I had to stay here as all flights between Italy and Spain were canceled. And I have been working at home from Madrid, but I have discovered how much work one can do from home. But Madrid has been the region of Spain most hit by the coronavirus, because it is the capital of the country and has one of the largest airports in Europe. So it's a place with a lot of traffic of passengers from around the world. And this had led to be one of the cities with more deaths in the world. So to this day, one every 750 people in this region has died from coronavirus. So it's a pretty big number. So and from that day, since March 14th, all shops, bar, restaurants have been closed. So for more than 2 months so far, and many of us have been we have been at home working and doing whatever we can in this situation.
You said for sure that you work at home, but I mean, you will be in contact, with the Rome Reports office every day. What I want to ask you, at Rome Reports, how did you cover this emergency?
Well, it has been very complicated because we had more work than ever, but in a very difficult working situation. Since we are a television news agency, we have to cover everything that happened in Italy and Rome and the Vatican during these 2 months so far. And it was very complicated because we have more work, but we had to work in complicated situations. For example, we also had to produce all the programs that we usually produce. For example, the weekly program, The World Scene from the Vatican, which is a weekly TV show that Southern Light Television has been airing since several years ago. So every week you can watch this TV show, and so we had to produce all the programs that we usually produce, and additionally we had to cover all this pandemic and how everything was handled in the Vatican, in Italy, and so yeah, it was complicated, but we managed to do I think a good job providing all the people everything that happened during this difficult time.
Regarding the office, the life at the office, how did you handle this situation in terms of the newsroom, the public spaces? What did you do about that?
To avoid some risks, some risk of contagious, we had to divide the office, all the staff in 2 teams. So in the case that someone get infected, only half of the staff will be in quarantine, while the other half will continue working, although under even more difficult was infected, and we were able to work the whole team during the whole period. So, and we also had to provide all the staff with masks, with hydroalcoholic gels, and other protection and cleaning materials, so we can work in a safely environment. But yeah, so we had to work more in even more difficult situation, but we managed to do it.
You know, this show is called Hope from Home. What I want to ask you is your personal hope for your country, for sure, and at the same time, your hope for the next weeks in general for this coronavirus situation.
So things are, thanks God, are becoming better. And I hope that with the summer, everybody the life could be as before, or as much similar as before, because nobody knows how things are going to be in the future until we get a vaccine. But from Rome Reports, we will continue producing the daily news reports every day, so everybody can get accurate information from the Pope and the Vatican. And we hope that we can continue with our work and providing this service to everybody.
Carlos, thanks so much for your time, for joining us here at Hope from Home. I really hope to see you soon at the Vatican, also because it means that you will be able to come back from Spain. Thanks so much.
Yes, thank you very much. See you soon.
Hello, Aaron Kinsella. Thanks for joining us for this episode from home.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Listen, as the director of campus ministry for the Newman Centre Catholic Mission here in Toronto, I was hoping that you can talk to us a little bit about the recent consecration of Canada to Mary by our bishops, why it's significant and what does it mean to our young people?
Mm-hmm. It's been a really interesting month, obviously, because we've all been kind of locked down and in our homes, and so Easter was strange this year, but also kind of this month of Mary, which we have every year, which is also kind of distinct this year because we have this consecration, that the bishops are doing. So I'm in my dad's office, so I wrote on my hand the dates of other consecrations, so I would be prepared to talk to you. I feel like I'm in high school. But basically we had the consecration to Mary has happened personally for people around the world, millions of people. And also in terms of consecrating the whole church, it's a history that we have in the church from 20th century on of consecrating the whole church to Mary, but then also with different bishops' conferences consecrating the country or their diocese to Mary. So yeah, like even looking at the recent consecrations of Canada, we had a consecration of Canada to the Immaculate Heart of Mary in 1947, 1954, 2017, and now again in 2020. So it's definitely something that's within kind of the broader history of the church and our practice. Yeah.
So what does it mean to our young people?
When I was thinking about really actually what does this mean to our young people, I think what I can see is that it's falling within this larger devotion to Mary that young people seem to have. So the people who are the students who are at Newman or some of the other campuses across Canada, like Ryerson, for example, they have a daily rosary online that they've been praying kind of since everything went online. And there are students at Newman who have, in the previous number of years, done consecration to Mary. So the consecration to Jesus through Mary, through a great resource called 33 Days to Morning Glory. You might have heard of it, yes. But it's really beautiful, and that's kind of like the thing, we actually at a Steubenville conference got a massive box of the kind of paper copies of 33 Days to Morning Glory, and it was gone within 6 months. And this was a whole box. So there's this like beautiful hunger of young people, and And I think that, I mean, a lot of it is built on like the history of the church, right? Of really giving ourselves to Jesus through Mary and understanding that she's our mother and that Jesus gave her as our mother from the cross, to be our mother, to lead us closer to his heart all the time. And that this is her, the one thing that she kind of is doing always is leading us into deeper relationship with him. And so if I think about young people, like the students at Newman or just young people in general, I think there's also a sense of like the sureness in her guidance, if that makes sense. Like there's so much coming at us all the time in the culture that we live in. And, you know, everybody can look up any opinion online about anything. And there's just information overload. So there's this beautiful, gentle sureness of Our Lady and this confidence that in giving ourselves to her, like to Jesus through her, that there's no way we can kind of do that with any kind of danger, you know, of like being led down the wrong path. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective. Can we talk for a moment about the Newman Centre? You know,
Sure.
Newman Centre is literally the hub for Catholic students at UFT. Can you give us an idea what kind of activities are going on right now during this pandemic, or if there isn't any?
Yeah, it's really interesting because we, in some senses, things are kind of as normal. Like usually at the end of the year, once it comes to April and people are doing exams and they're kind of in study mode, then people go their ways for the summer for the most part, because most of the students don't actually live on campus because U of T is a 90% commuter campus. So we'll have some continuing things in the summer, like a program we have called Pray and Play, where students will have an hour of adoration and then we go into the house and do some games or something like that. And so this year, it's kind of looked similar in the sense that people really are going back to their normal lives with their family or home or, you know, working online for the summer and things like that. So the activities that we have kind of like slowed down in the same way that they normally would. But then there also is a desire for meeting together for some kind of connection. And for us, that's looking more like it's happening in small groups or one-on-one. So we have some students who are living in the house now for the summer. They'll be there as our student campus ministers. And so they're reaching out to students one-on-one to touch base with them, to check in on people. We also have some video series that we've done online. So how to grow in virtue in the time of pandemic, which has been really great. We've also had some Bible studies, like there's an online series that Father Peter is leading on prayer, and different gatherings for like the rosary and things like that. Yeah, so it's kind of like a smaller group.
So there's still stuff going on. It's pretty interesting. Where can people go to see these videos?
Yeah, so they can go to Facebook is generally the best bet. So Facebook, Newman U of T, and they can see any of the videos that we have there, or you can also look up Newman U of T on YouTube, and that has the videos. Plus, I would add that if people are looking for kind of ways to grow in faith during this time, there's a great series being put out by St. Augustine Seminary with some of their faculty who are giving reflections each day in this kind of novena to Pentecost. But they would be great reflections to look at any point. And the one from yesterday with Father Kevin was really great and talked about joy and talked about kind of growing in joy, looking at it as a virtue. And so he also spoke about one of the things that I find is really kind of difficult for young people sometimes is that it's like the stuff we put into us, like the TV shows that we watch, the YouTube things that we watch, all of those kind of things, you know, if they're suggesting different ways of things that will bring us joy, really, other than Jesus, other than God, then we can kind of start to believe that. So one thing I might suggest is that even on our YouTube feed, there's old talks. So Father Jacques Philippe or Mother Dolores Hart or these lectures that we've kind of posted over the last few years, they're all there.
They're all there. Fantastic.
They're all there.
And we're running out of time, but I do want to ask you this one last question. Erin, what gives you personal hope during this difficult time?
Personally, so I think what gives me hope, like this is such a good question. I think what gives me hope is that there's there are things that don't change, right? Like the everyday of being able to have prayer and have time with the Lord. But also, I think what gives me hope is the things that I see in people around me and in students and in other organizations where, despite the hardships of being home or things like that, that there's this beautiful generosity that's come. There's been this appreciation of the things that are true and good and beautiful and important that's come in a new way, and a new understanding of how responsible we are to each other. That my action, my staying home is actually a way of loving others so that I don't infect somebody who it would be dangerous to get this virus from, it's things like that. So, so those are really hopeful things that I find.
Well, that's great, Erin. Thank you so much for sharing all those thoughts and ideas with us.
So welcome. Very welcome.
Okay. Keep safe.
You too.
Christine, it's so good to have you in the program with us today. It's so good to see you after so many years.
Yes, so nice to see you too. Thanks for having me.
Yes. You're a certified midwife. You work in the largest birthing center in North America, correct?
The largest freestanding birth center in
Okay,
North
and
America.
Tell us a little bit about what you do. What's a normal day for you at the office?
Sure. So I am a staff midwife at the Austin Area Birthing Center. We have 2 locations, and this is primarily for women who are seeking an out-of-hospital birth, and they have to meet a number of parameters. They have to be low risk, and we're constantly doing risk assessment to make sure that this is the right place for them to meet their babies when it's time for labor. We have a pretty low transport rates. I think it's less than 17% in labor would transport to the hospital, usually non-emergent. But we are a staff of about 12 midwives across the 2 centers. We have a couple of lactation consultants and medical assistants. So we do the primary care for pregnant women. So anyone who's expecting a baby, sometimes you might see an obstetrician, sometimes you might see a midwife.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, we had an obstetrician on the show a few episodes ago, and obviously she was talking about hospital. You'd think that with the current crisis, it would be perfect for women to be giving birth at home. Do you also help with home births?
So we don't. We're kind of in the middle. There are a number of, in most places you can find home birth midwives as well. We're kind of that interim in between. We have seen a lot of late transfers coming into care for women who would like to avoid a hospital birth during the current conditions.
Okay. Tell me a little bit more about that. Are there other adjustments or other, changes that you've seen in the last month because of the crisis?
Over the last 2 months, it's almost been a daily change, actually. As things started out, we were like, so how are we navigating this? Initially starting with wearing masks, we're screening our patients when they come in, checking their temp, asking probing questions. We have avoided using the waiting room now. Women are just roomed immediately and brought in to see. The midwife comes in directly after they've had a normal temperature and have passed the screening tests. We're doing a lot of telehealth. So we're primarily seeing women in clinic for their first prenatal visits, when they need to do their glucose testing around 28 weeks. We do a quick little, we call it a flash sonogram to make sure baby's head down around 34 weeks. And then that last month of pregnancy when it is important to be seeing people more frequently. Otherwise, we're doing all of our visits remotely.
Okay, so virtually.
Yeah.
If someone might be pregnant right now watching this, and maybe she's concerned, a little worried. What does a pregnant woman right now need to know about giving birth during this time?
Well, there's still a lot of questions, but primarily we've been seeing that women seem to be doing well with pregnancy. There is a high percentage of pregnant women who are testing positive but are asymptomatic. So that's good news in the fact that, even if they have it, they're not, expressing it in the same way that we're seeing in some of the vulnerable populations with the breathing difficulties and things like that.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. You mean they're testing positive for the virus?
Yes, and I've heard a range from 29 to 49% are asymptomatic that test positive.
Is there any danger that they might transmit or pass on the disease to the
baby? At the moment, they're suggesting that there is no vertical transmission, that the risk would come after. So once baby is born, there might be a possibility for that. So a number of the hospitals are separating mums and newborns in a mom that's positive.
Okay. Yeah. Now, Christine, you don't work for a faith-based organization, but you are. Faith is important for you. I know that.
Absolutely.
How does that influence what you do? How does your faith influence what you do?
Well, when I get that call, so our calls are usually a 24-hour call. So if I get a call from a mom in labor, when I get in the car and start driving, my first go-to is a rosary for that family, for that baby, regardless of what faith background they might be. And that, they recognize the inherent value in this beautiful gift of life that they've been given, and that either the parents will bring faith to their child or the child will bring faith to their parents at some point, and God will be, glorified in all of this. But, when I have that opportunity and you see maybe a mom is wearing a cross, or maybe they're playing some Christian music, that's an opportunity to kind of open up some conversation and share what I think is really important. I always tell women that I think labor and birth is the closest we can come as women to understanding Christ's passion and death on the cross. He has such dignity for us. I mean, God could, with a proverbial snap of his fingers, create an entire population of people. Yet he has the dignity to allow us to participate in this process. And labor and birth is our opportunity to walk Calvary with Jesus. He still gives us these blessed breaks in between the contractions. He respects our human frailty and knows that we can't quite do what he did, but he calls us to part of that. When we can, I think for women who are of faith background, already you can offer your labor for somebody. I always tell people, when they're preparing, start a list, seek out prayer intentions. What do you want to pray for? Offer each contraction. When it comes, you can have your husband say, okay, here's what we're praying for in this contraction. Eventually you get to a point where you can't do that. It's just for whatever the contractions are, for whatever the prayer intentions might be. Wow. But, the end result of the cross is new life. And we have that opportunity to share in this gift of giving birth. So the hardest things in life are the most worthwhile. So I always tell people, that this might be the hardest thing you'll ever do, but I promise you it's the most worthwhile thing. When God was condemning Adam and Eve after the fall, he didn't condemn them and say you're going to have to work and it's going to hurt to have a baby because he was just ticked off. He's teaching the value of redemptive suffering. St. Paul tells us that I make up for that which is lacking in the suffering of Christ. If we sit and think about that for a minute, what could possibly be lacking in the suffering of Christ? Well, my willingness to. He's on the cross not so I don't have to be, but showing me what I'm supposed to do. I can offer this up for someone else. And it can be quite a beautiful thing. An interesting side note, typically speaking, I know this is kind of being a little bit of a generalization, but if you need the piano moved, ladies, you're probably going to ask your husband, hey, can you get on this? I need the furniture moved. If we've got a friend who's having a difficult time, we're the ones that are probably going to go and console them. Labor takes that and reverses those two roles. We suddenly have the woman taking on the physical role and we have the men taking on the emotional role, and both are equally challenging for them. And so, guys, you can offer that up as well. And it's also a place of growth in our parenting. We need both of those sides. We have to relate to both. Guys, you always want to fix everything. You have to just stand by and kind of watch it and maybe marvel at the strength that your wife has while she's giving birth to your child. It's such a beautiful, beautiful time.
It is a beautiful time and a powerful time. If I remember the ones we went through. Chris, what you say is so profound. Suffering for love is really what makes it redemptive. So I think that you've certainly given me a whole new appreciation for this gift of being co-creators with God. And thank you for what you're doing and
thanks.
Or you continue to do during this crisis.
Thanks so much.
And that's all for today. I love hearing our updates from around the world. It's so good to know that churches in Spain are now open. And it's also good to hear from Erin Kinsella at the Newman Centre. Thank you for helping us understand the Marian consecration and for telling us about the work at Newman. And are any of you pregnant? You have lots to think about, so it's good to know that midwives like Christine and all medical professionals are doing everything they can so that everyone is safe. Have you had an experience giving birth during this time? Tell us about it. Share your comments with us by following Salt and Light Media on all of our social media platforms and commenting with the hashtag #HopeFromHome. If you missed any part of the program and you'd like to watch it again, you can always visit our website saltandlighttv.org/HopeFromHome. We hope that these stories inspire you to stay positive and remind you that we're all still connected through hope.